Good morning, everyone. As mentioned, I'm the head of technology at Linklaters. I have a team of about 100 or so people around the world looking after data security, technology outsourcing. Those are our gigs. I am not going to talk, however, very much this morning with a bit of luck, but rather I'm going to be outsourcing that challenge to 4 people on my panel who are going to join me on the stage now. First of all, DOMINIC Mack from Thomson Reuters, and James Chappell from Digital Shadows, Matt Ridley from Winton Capital, and Adrian Black from Contigo. Put your hands together to welcome on the stage, please. And look, very briefly, I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your business.
Good morning, I'm Adrian Black. I'm the founder and CEO of Contigo, and we help our customers with compliance and fraud challenges by doing real-time checks on people, companies, and identity documents in onboarding and monitoring scenarios.
Hi, I'm Matt Ridley. I run Winton Ventures. So Winton is a systematic trading advisor, known to most as a quant. We've done incredibly well over the last 20 years from data and data science. So we know a thing or two about big data and big data streams and how to process them. We also have a lot of money. So those two things we thought were a perfect ingredient for a venture capital arm. So I head up that. We've got 2 accelerators that we run in Hammersmith. One is focused purely on cyber technology, so that's called Cylon, Cyber London. We also run Winton Labs, which is a big data accelerator.
Fantastic.
Hi everyone, I'm James Chappell, CTO and co-founder of Digital Shadows. We provide our clients what we call cyber situational awareness. Basically, we monitor the digital footprints of companies from a security perspective and provide that as a service. And we've been very fortunate to have had an exciting growth structure from 2 guys, a bit of PowerPoints and wavy hands in 2011, through to now 88 people, both sides of the Atlantic, and raised over 22 million in funding.
Looking forward to seeing those wavy hands. Okay, and then last of all, Dominic.
Dominic Mack. I work for Thomson Reuters in the Risk Managed Services division, and we provide a KYC managed utility on behalf of banks and asset managers, where we mutualize the effort associated with conducting KYC on corporates, and where we provide an outsourced service where we do that on behalf of our banking clients.
Okay, so we have 20 minutes roughly, so let's keep this brief. Let's start by talking about threats. Thinking about evolving threats in 2016, just from your experiences, what are the key threats you think businesses face in the data security area in 2016? How's that changing? Who would like to go first?
One of the aspects of the digital shadow we monitor is threats, and we see it quite a broad range, but one of the really interesting developments is we've seen a shift from high volume, low value fraud in financial services to high value, low volume fraud where people are very specifically targeted. So we've seen things like invoice fraud, impersonation becoming a really big theme in financial markets. I think if you look at things like the SWIFT hack as well, it's hard to ignore 10,000 terminals worldwide are now obvious targets for criminals, and that's not necessarily a fault of the SWIFT network, but there's a duty for the financial service industry to protect those terminals, and that's non-trivial because there's some very sophisticated activity there to try and reach those. So for me, that's 2 themes that I've seen emerging.
Anyone else? Dominic?
Yeah, so because we hold data that's confidential on a lot of our clients, including some quite personal data, and as the Times pointed out, we also have a database of 2.1 million terrorists, which is nice of them to do so. Maintaining the integrity of that data is important for us, and therefore the security around that, so that we don't get hacked, is absolutely mandatory as part of our sort of day-to-day activity. And being able to secure that, to give trust to the clients, to be able to contribute their data to our ecosystem is absolutely mandatory going forward.
So we're on the third cohort of Cyber London, and it was quite a tipping point, actually. This time round, we had more companies, more startups that we're hosting, focused on the insider threat than the outsider one. So most of the attention that cyber's had over the last 5-10 years has been either APTs or guys in the basement with the hoodies. We all know the photos that the Telegraph always dig out. But actually most of the data losses that we have are either the malicious insider, people with the pen drives, downloading all sorts of things, the careless insider, which is people circumventing policy and making things available on their Hotmail accounts that shouldn't be. But then there's also the rest of us as well. I mean, we've all sent an email to the wrong recipient at some point. We've all that's what we're exactly, and we're all we're all trying to do a professional job, and sometimes the autofill button doesn't help us out. So one of the companies on Cylon is trying to tackle that threat, and I think that's definitely an emerging theme, and it's one that's finally kind of arrived, I think.
Adrian, anything to add?
Yes, really just echoing, amplifying that point. I mean, the insider threat is still often overlooked, and some of it's not a technology solution. It's, do you know everything about everybody who's got access to systems and data? Are you doing full background screening checks on suppliers and staff? Because such a high proportion of serious incidents are a result of some insider weakness. In terms of other emerging threats, I mean, two that I see are going to be a bigger problem are extortion. So rather than just the usual hacker taking data and just flogging it or releasing it, is extorting businesses to stop the release. And data sabotage. So imagine somebody gets into your systems and changes a small percentage of the data, you don't know what, and then holds you to ransom on that. So there are some new threats like that which are quite challenging. But it comes back to me about know everything relevant about everybody, your customers, your suppliers, and your staff.
Okay, interesting set of threats you guys have identified there. I mean, thinking about the wide panoply of businesses in this room, what would you be saying to them about what are the key planks of a strategy to deal with that? And because you're here to advertise your businesses, tell us a bit about how your businesses help mitigate those or help deliver those key planks. Who wants to go first? Dominic?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So we see three ways of being able to achieve integrity and data security, which is our own controls and processes that we use within our own data centers. I mean, Thomson Reuters holds financial information on behalf of the banks within our own data centers here within actually the Canary Wharf. And having the right controls and penetration capabilities, control mechanisms in place is mandatory. And we have and use a 95-point control procedure, which we get audited by PwC on an ongoing basis, and gives us a certification around ISA 3000 for outsourcing. That gives the regulators and the local countries, because we're a global solution, a degree of comfort in the fact that we're keeping the client data secure. But then the second part is that we need to be able to provide access from an audit perspective from the competent authorities in the regions. So the regulators do need to be able to access where they believe there's some issues, our database, and we give the access to that. Plus also, I think the banks themselves also would like to do some security control and audits on us themselves. So that's the sort of third methodology that we use to keep our data secure.
Okay.
I guess not everyone here will be a big corporate, of course, and there's some other approaches which I would suggest. So the first I would always suggest is have an incident plan ready. What's a really encouraging shift we've seen in the market recently is people have moved away from building the castle walls higher and higher and moving into a place where actually it's better to respond well, respond quickly and recover quickly. And that's really what you should be focusing on if you've got any sort of security plan at all, is recovering quickly and recovering well. For us, we would always argue that good situational awareness is a good part of this. So This is really about understanding your vulnerabilities. So looking at your own business from the perspective of someone who is hostile, someone who is likely to attack you, where are the points they're going to go in? Looking at data loss, and you can illustrate, there's a lot of inadvertent data loss. To the point earlier, I think 70% of security events are actually accident and misadventure. You can illustrate this going on Google and typing confidential, not for distribution, file type PDF. You'll get 200,000 documents on Google that really should not be there. So the point is that know what's out there about yourself, know what's there, and that awareness can help you fix problems before they come.
Okay.
So I'd probably say most businesses aren't designed to just be secure. You know, they're designed to interact, they're designed to have customers, and the security folks are waking up to that. But I think the fact that most of these corporate IT infrastructures that we've got, we're constantly bolting things on, we're constantly kind of integrating new technologies. We are constantly, going around InfoSec conference and we think, oh, hang on, we need one of those, and then, there's not enough kind of planning in creating that layered defense. And there's also not enough aggregation and skills. So we've got lots of, we've got the Frankenstack, we've got we've got these IT systems that have been bolted together. And so a couple of the companies that we're really interested in at the moment are the ones that kind of bring that all together, bring all of your defenses together. I think one of the big threats, going back to the last question, is actually what happens when we've got to be a little bit smarter with our IT budgets, and we can't just spend our way out of it. And all of these things that we've collected are going to have to work together. So anything that brings all of those sources together and lets the CISO and the executive team know what the risk is and actually start to manage it, those are going to be really big.
The topical point, one of the things we know very clearly is that arms races are really expensive. So better to spend your money smarter rather than just spend more of it. Adrian, anything else to add about key planks for people in this room to be thinking about and how Contigo helps?
Yes, I mean, not so much going on, but Contigo to start with respect to the people. You've got to make sure that all members of your team, all members of your suppliers have got the right attitude, that security and data protection and compliance are built into the attitude of the team and the processes within the business. And get away from just trying to do the basics, just to do a process as quickly as possible or just tick a box for a regulator. Think beyond that. So one of the things we help people to do is not just do the basic checks on people, but not just is an identity document genuine, but has it been fraudulently obtained and known to the police? If you know a mobile phone number, then is it in the right country where the client's supposed to be? So go beyond the basics to protect yourself from fraud, other threats, not just tick the compliance box.
Okay, well, think compliance. That's a nice segue into the kind of last area I wanted to talk about, which is regulators and regulator engagement. One of the things that's been striking to me over the last 2-3 years is how much more proactive regulators have become in this area. What have you guys found in dealing with regulators over the last 2-3 years? How's it changing? What is the approach of regulators in this area? Who'd like to go? Dominic,
Yeah, I might as well keep it in the
keep it a simple order.
Yeah. So obviously the emergence of FinTech funding from the regulators is a key aspect to them recognising there's a problem, wanting them to be able to invest into a public-private partnership with tech providers to be able to solve for industry issues. And if you take Singapore with the launch of the FTIG fund, or the HKMA are coming out with their own fund, and AusTrack as well, we're seeing a lot of capital available for fintech firms to be able to take and solve for industry issues. So the number one observation is they're getting a lot more involved and realise the issue. Number two is that they want to solve this from a national perspective, but also have a global lens on being able to solve for issues. So KYC specifically, a lot of the Singaporean FTIG funding is going on, how do I solve for individuals, and use sources of data that are available within the Singaporean entity, so such as MyInfo or SingPass, to be able to make that available for private companies to be able to leverage and use as part of the overall solution. So a lot more openness is the second thing that I would see from the regulators and the governments.
Okay, thank you.
I guess regulators have got two things available to them. One is carrot and the other one is stick. And we see, unfortunately, in the past, we've seen a lot of stick-based regulation where it's sort of compliance-based and people don't really believe in it, but they comply anyway. I think what is encouraging is we're seeing a bit more of the carrot come out now. So we've been involved in a collaboration with the Bank of England around sort of scenario-based security testing, where the firms, the bank, and our competitors and peers all work together to come up with the best approach for managing this. That's run as CBEST recently over 30 of the tier one financial firms here in the UK. I think the other interesting opportunities, as has been alluded to, is there is genuine innovation in regulation as well, and I think there's a lot of cases. If you look at MAS, they have historically had a very sort of you will buy a firewall with this kind of functionality on it approach, and I think even they are starting to recognise that both the regulated entities and the regulators need to innovate together as a team, and that way we're going to get much more out of it. So I'm really encouraged by that progression.
Yeah, I'd echo that entirely. They're definitely becoming more mature, and rather than being satisfied with a tick box exercise, kind of Cyber Essentials style or NIST, regulators want to see that you understand the threats that you're facing. They want to see that you understand the network that you're managing, and you're putting all of the right things in place to manage that sensibly. And I think that's a good step forward.
I have to say I've been quite impressed with the FCA over the last couple of years in their Project Innovate. They've been engaging with Innovate Finance and the whole FinTech community here in London quite strongly, more than I would expect a regulator to do historically. So they're being more proactive, which is good. And I mean, just this month, we were all on a journey to the cloud. All systems are on a journey to the cloud. The only thing that varies really is where you are on that journey, how fast you're moving, and how safely you're traveling, really. There's been a lot of suspicion and concern. We've heard customers say, we can't use cloud systems, the regulator won't allow it, etc. So a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation out there. So some great guidance from the FCA just a couple of weeks ago about how cloud-based services can be part of a strong regime, and some good guidance for suppliers and for customers alike. So it's good to see that from the FCA. And I've been quite impressed as well. And then you look at the Competition and Markets Authority and their report on competition in retail and SME banking. I'm not a regulator as such, but again, it's good to see their engagement with the FinTech community, the establishment of the Open Banking Working Group, which is leading to the Open Banking API, and banks looking at collaborating to open up some of their data to improve competition. So I think engagement's been good recently.
And that's, I think, a key message to come out of what all of you said, that regulators here in London are engaging with innovators in this area, are encouraging it. They see it as part of one of the ways to make London a competitive place in which to do financial services business. So I'm slightly conscious that although we started late, we are now 10 minutes over time.
We're okay. A few questions perhaps from the audience?
Okay. We have time for questions from the floor.
Absolutely,
Okay.
2 questions, yeah.
One or two questions from the floor in that case. Anything for our panellists from the floor? I can see a lady there. Could you tell us your name, location, and then your question for the panel, please?
Hello, I'm Juliette Beckwith from Swiss Re in Zurich, and my question is, do you have any experience of dealing with other regulators within Europe? I'm particularly interested in FINMA's engagement, that's the Swiss regulator, and how accommodating they've been to FinTech propositions.
So non-UK, if you want to go first. Okay, I think Dominic, go for it.
So FINMA are probably the most challenging in Europe, and set they consider our services outsourcing, and have set some very clear guidelines around what you will need to do to be able to outsource a particular service. But I think we've used Linklaters and we've used advice from professional services firms to allow us to be able to adhere to a lot of the rules, especially around data privacy, that allow us to be able to make our service relevant for Switzerland. And having gone to FINMA through the clients, the banking clients, it's as long as you follow the process and tick all the boxes, they are actually okay with the sort of services that we provide.
Just a little bit of involvement. So European Central Bank have been talking about cyber resilience exercises, not dissimilar to what we've seen here in the UK. I think the other thing we've seen a lot of, obviously, is GDPR and the discussion around general data protection regulation from the EU, which is going to happen in some form here in the UK. So I think a lot of firms are looking at making sure they're ready for that, because they're going to have to trade with Europe, even if that isn't the eventual implementation here. So, yeah.
Anyone else with European regulatory experience they're prepared to share?
Not really so much for me, but I know obviously Switzerland and Germany are challenging jurisdictions to operate in, but it's, I guess, the B word, the dreaded Brexit word. I don't think it changes any of this. It's back to this point, all this data regulation, increasing compliance, standardization of systems and regulations and interactions between systems is not really going to fundamentally change. It changes nothing.
We live in a more joined up world than we did 40 years ago, and that's not going to alter. That's certainly true. One more question from the floor, maybe. He says, peering through the lights. Anyone else? No? Nothing for our panel? Oh, there's a gentleman here in the middle.
Hello. Andrea Grande from Status Today. With the importance of the insider threats that you highlighted, was the general view over employee monitoring and obviously, privacy versus need for monitoring for the implications of the insider threat?
I don't know if anyone has particular views. I certainly have some. If anyone on the panel, go for it.
It is a careful balance. So you need to have a different approach to different types of staff. People who've got access to core systems, so any systems administrators, for instance, you should expect the highest level of vetting. And it should be openly disclosed with all your staff. Anybody who's got the ability to move funds, again, high level of screening. But front office staff don't necessarily need that. So you've got to be erring on the side of caution. You've got to be transparent with staff. Tell them when you're recruiting them that the checks will be done then and appropriate checks on an ongoing basis. And just have that culture of safety and security in the team so that everybody understands why it's happening.
I think the key thing to bear in mind, not just in the UK, but right across Europe, is that individuals don't check out their privacy rights when they walk into work in the mornings. They still keep those. But how that then plays out in the work environment is very, very different in different markets. Here in the UK, what Adrian's just described, very, very typical. We're quite used to the idea of DLP technology, monitoring of employees on a regular basis, how they use technology. That's regarded as an appropriate balance for businesses. As you move outside of the UK and into other markets, that balance has historically been more challenging. Our own experience of dealing with the CNIL in France, the state regulators in Germany has become very, very different over the last 5 years. So there's a much greater openness to that kind of routine monitoring than was maybe 5 years ago.
So I'd probably add as well that rather than just monitoring and telling off and having a strong policy in place, I think there are lots of really creative solutions now that are trying to just help employees. So the autofill example I used earlier, there's a company that comes up with a suggestion. Hang on, do you actually mean that that Dave from Linklaters, or were you trying to just send these documents to another member of your team? There are lots of things to try and help well-meaning employees not to make mistakes.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Last comment?
I was just going to say, I was having a debate with some chief risk officers last night about this very point, and it's very interesting. They see the opportunity in the data that businesses possess. If you use that for good to try and grow the business, then actually you also generate lots of useful compliance data in the process. So actually having an approach which is business first, compliance, sort of business-led, compliance following, I think has been very effective for some businesses.
So you're hearing some alternatives to the more conventional, let's monitor everyone all the time, as an approach to achieving improved approved security. Okay, look, we have definitely overrun our slot now, I think pretty conclusively. I wonder if you can put your hands together for our panel for their content. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So once again, thank you to Dominic, Adrian, James and Matt.